All right, good evening and welcome to bourbonblog.com live. We're celebrating St. Patrick's Day this week and one of our favorite Irish whiskeys, Teeling whiskey tasting through several Teelings with my good friend Alex Chasko. He is the master distiller there at Teeling. Thanks for joining us live from Dublin. How's everything going in Dublin?
Yeah, it's great. It's great, Tom. It's great to have St. Patrick's Day happening with people actually, post-COVID out and about. So it's great to see everybody in Dublin. Yeah,
I bet so. So the last couple of years, of course, things probably last year beginning to open up. Maybe what is it? What's it looking like this week versus what it was looking like the last couple of years?
it's much more active. There's a lot more people out on the streets. Yeah, tourists are back in town. The distilleries open. The distillery's always been making whiskey throughout lockdown, but we didn't have visitors coming around. So it's great to have people back. We've got Saturdays and Sundays, typically 500-600 people a day coming through the distillery, visiting us and tasting some great whiskey. And yeah, it's great to get people back in. And I, as a whiskey maker, really live for that interaction with people. It's great to have those moments where people are telling you what they like or what they don't like about the whiskey, and feeding off of that interaction. So it's great to have people back in the distillery.
All right. Whoa. Here we go. We're sorry about that.
That's all right.
I think the leprechauns were playing a little trick on us, maybe.
It might be the room that I'm in. Do you want to try this again with me going into the other room?
I think it's actually my internet. Don't worry about it. Okay. I can probably do something later. But no, let's continue. You're doing awesome. So people are it's lots more people visiting this week than usual.
Yes, absolutely. People are back in Dublin for St. Paddy's Day. Yeah,
500 a day at your distillery. That's a lot more than usual.
Yeah.
It's
good.
This is not a tiny distillery, but again, it's not like massive either. I mean, this is a very special place that I was so lucky to be with you all for the kickoff there 7 years ago. I can't believe it's almost been 7 years. The first distillery in Dublin at that time that was in that region making Irish whiskey. First new one in a while, right?
Yeah, 150 years, something like that. Yeah.
Wow, that's amazing. And so since you all have been doing that, you've been obviously making several new expressions. We're going to try several of those. Let's go ahead and taste this one first, though. This is your flagship, the Teeling Small Batch. And I feel like, even though we've always enjoyed this and seen it around, I feel like this year especially, I'm seeing more and more of it on the shelves. Have you been able to push out a little bit more lately of this?
Yeah, I think it is catching on. I think it's always been popular with people who like their Irish whiskey, but I think the people who maybe are part-time Irish whiskey drinkers are finding it more this time. Yeah, it's growing in popularity, definitely.
Is one of your hopes that the part-time Irish whiskey drinkers that maybe only get into it during a St. Patrick's Day week like this week, that they'll find this and then they'll say, we should be drinking this more often? I mean, I feel like every time I experience St. Patrick's Day week, I'm reminded of those great Irish whiskeys.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that people are looking for new expressions and new flavors, and bourbon and an Irish whiskey, and Scotch whiskey too, right? And in other spirits. So I think Teeling fits into that sort of category of something new, something different, a bit more than what you're expecting.
Yes.
Yeah, and if St. Patrick's Day is an excuse that gets you off the horse, then sure, or on the horse or whatever. Yeah.
I love it. No, this is so delicious. It has that rum cask influence does a lot to this to really bring it to life. How do you make this?
Yeah, so what we do with this is really quite simple. We start out with bourbon casks, right? Grain whiskey and bourbon casks. We have malt whiskey. Well, if I can get my hands, there we go. Put my hands in the right spot. We start off with bourbon casks of malt and grain whiskey. We blend those together, right? And we put it back into a rum cask for another 12 months. Wow. And that's a process that's known as the marrying process. It's not something I thought up, right? It's nothing new. It would have been very common probably about 50 or 60 years ago. Wow. And what we do that is unusual is putting it into that rum cask and allowing those flavors to come together, right? Now, why were people doing it before, right, and not doing it now? The reason why is because it's expensive, right? So the rum cask for us gives us that layer of flavor. It gives us that rum raisin nose, right? It gives us that richness and that depth that you get off of the Teeling Small Batch.
And a lot of nice sweetness, and there's this beautiful it's like a warming note, right? It's not that it's like warm with proof, but there is proof there. But it's that
46% alcohol.
It's kind of like a slight bit of holiday kind of warming spice on that finish. I mean, it really is. It's such an elevated experience, I think, from many Irish whiskeys. That rum cask and everything you do play. As you were mentioning, the malt whiskey, the grain whiskey, question I'm sure you're asked a lot. What makes Irish whiskey so unique? I know there's malt, there's grain. In general, how does Irish whiskey separate from other Irish whiskeys?
I think what makes Irish whiskey unique from other whiskeys from around the world, and there's a growing number of countries that are producing whiskey, right, is that smooth approachability of it, right? It has a light, very fruit forward nose to it, right? And then on the taste, for me, it's just, there's no burn, there's no aggressiveness to it, right? There's a little bit of vanilla, honey, woody.
Honeys, nice fruit. And that's what typically a distiller, most Irish whiskeys are going for, more the lighter, the friendly, the approachable flavors. You can use grain, you can use malted barley, you can use a mixture, right? Just like this one.
We've got a lot more freedom than you would in other countries, right? And I feel like it also, because of its light, approachable nature, lends itself to different casks and different areas that you can go to that might be a bit harder for, say, like a bourbon, right, or for a rye whiskey.
Right. Lots more freedom. And again, the Teeling Small Batch whiskey, if you're still looking for a whiskey to pour for your friends, you're going to amaze them, delight them. This is one that is so special. Again, first cask is used bourbon for both the malt and for the grain.
Exactly.
And the mash bill that you're looking for in the grain is what? What kind of mash bill is that?
We're talking about mostly corn. We're talking about probably 90% corn.
Almost 100%. And then the malted barley. That goes in the first cask for how long?
You're talking about probably 5-6 years.
5-6 years.
And it goes another year in the rum cask.
Rum cask. Do you, I mean, without getting too into detail on what kinds of rum casks, what are they? Are they more aged rums? Are they?
What we really want with that rum cask is, I'm just looking for it to have that light rum raisin nose to it, right? Yeah. So I'm looking for a rum that's not particularly old, right? And I'm looking for a cask that's got good structural integrity to it, because I don't want to have high losses in that cask, right? So I'm not looking for it. It's already a mature whiskey, right? I'm just looking for it to bring the flavors together and for everything to really set up nicely over that year.
Excellent. Great. Well, as you mentioned, lots of freedom to do new whiskeys in Ireland, different types. And you all decided to do something that, you came out with this one and some other expressions, which we love. But then you said, let's do something that's also peated.
Yeah.
I was actually just sipping some of this last night with a friend. We were pairing some cigars with this. I mean, this is so unique, this Blackpitts. Tell us about Blackpitts.
So it's a peated single malt, right? That's nothing new. There's lots. I mean, there's a whole, Isla is cranking out loads of peated single malt, right? But we wanted to do peated single malt in a way that it hasn't been done before, right? We wanted to make it Irish, and so by triple distilling it. So when you are talking about peated single malt, you're talking about the smokiness of it, right? That's parts per millions of a specific compound phenols. Now, if you're going to double distill, you're going to start out with like a fairly high level of phenols in there, right? And every step, the milling, the mashing, the fermentation, and the distillation is going to bring that down, right? And if you're double distilling, you're going to end up, somewhere, let's say around there. If you do another triple distilling, you're going to go all the way down, right? And so for this whiskey, the challenge was to start out top up, go big, right, in the beginning, because we knew in order for us to get anything out at the end of that triple distillation, it was going to be a struggle. But what also happens during that process where the phenol levels are coming down, all of your fruit is going up, right?
Okay.
So all of the influence from the yeast, right? All those esters and those aldehydes, yeah. And that's what's really great, I think, about the Blackpitts is it's got a light smokiness, right? There's more of like a campfire sort of smoky, meaty kind of quality to it,
right?
Yeah, with loads of fruit in the background.
It's so well balanced. I mean, you get that smoke. It's there. It's not as in your face as some islands, and sometimes we want something more in the face. But if you're looking for something that's balanced, where you still get a lot of the beauty of what Ireland is, but also that smoke, this is really it. And you said, again, 3 times. You have to distill your whiskeys 3 times, right?
We do it triple distilling for the Blackpitts, exactly. Yeah. And with the Blackpitts, we had a bit of success with our 24-year-old single malt that had a light amount of smokiness in it, where it won the world's best single malt, right? Wow. And that was in Sauterne casks. And so we thought, all right, well, the smoky sort of light characteristic seems to be going well with the Sauterne casks. Let's try it with the Blackpitts, right? Let's try putting this new make spirit in. So we fully mature both in bourbon casks and in Sauterne casks, right? And what that gives us is a long, sweet minerality on the finish. The Sauterne casks really just play well with all of that light, floral, fruity, and smokiness that's in there.
Up until a few years ago, I've always enjoyed Sauterne on occasion, the wine itself, but we didn't see tons of. We saw a few distilleries that were doing it. I know you all have really always been an industry leader on that. You did it on that lovely older whiskey. Talk about that. I mean, when you were thinking about all the different things you could do with that, did you experiment with some other casks, or did you right away say, let's do Sauterne? How did you come up with that?
I'd like to say that there was a well thought out plan, that it was we knew what we were doing and we executed it to perfection, right? But the reality is we put this liquid in a variety of different casks. So we've got cognac casks, we've got Lupiac casks, we've got sherry, we've got a whole library of casks, right? And it was really the success of winning that award for the world's best single malt that focused the mind as to Sauternes. Let's look at the Sauternes. I was really excited about the cognac casks. The cognac casks had like a nice sort of green apple fruitiness to it. But it was the Sauternes that really, like, when we came back to it, was like, you know what, that's it. That's the ticket. And sometimes you just sort of need to stop thinking so much, right? And just like drink it and say, yeah, I like that.
This has the sweetness you're looking for, the smokiness. And again, the same whiskey that's, how old is this one again?
So this would be 6 years old.
6 years or so part of it goes into Sauterne, part of it goes into ex-bourbon barrel. Exactly. Then you get the right marriage of those flavors.
Yeah, together. Exactly. That's it.
Do you share about what the percentage of each is? Or is it?
It's about a third Sauterne, about 2/3 bourbon.
Nice.
In there. Yeah.
It really is beautiful. Again, this one was released, was it 2 years ago? Is that when this came out?
Yeah, 2 years ago.
2 years ago.
And it's been, very well received. The Whiskey Advocate named it number 3 this last year.
It's so good. It's just so complex. Blackpitts is actually named after, is it an area of Dublin, right?
Yeah, it's the area where the distillery is in Dublin. So we're in the Liberties. The Liberties is kind of a strange name for an area of town. It's where you had the freedom or the liberty to do what you wanted to do, right? So you could set up a brewery or a distillery or a tannery. And the Blackpitts was the area where there was a lot of those tanneries going on. It's where a lot of the working heart of the Liberties was.
Yeah, I remember the Liberties, and this is actually the general region, the Blackpitts that you all are in. That's what it's called. I feel like it kind of matches the name well with that smokiness and everything. It really does. This is one I've had neat. You could put an ice cube on this. It brings out some of that sweetness. It's, like I said, great with a cigar, but I can see this being good with some other cheeses. What would you pair this with if you were? I mean, obviously, glass is a good idea too.
Yeah, you're right. It does go well. It goes well with chocolate.
Chocolate, yeah.
Chocolate, of course, is a great combination. You know what? Also, that's like I'm no mixologist or bartender or whatever, but like a penicillin, that's lovely.
Oh, yeah, I can see that. Ooh, that would be nice. Yeah. That'd be nice. And again, so many great people watching. Tell us down below what your favorite Teeling whiskey is. Definitely like this video as you're watching and sharing. We're trying to help everybody celebrate St. Patrick's Day. We're glad to be back out at Irish bars across the world. So much activity happening in Dublin. And as you're listening to Alex, you may be saying, I think Alex actually, he's in Dublin, but this guy, I think he sounds like he might be American, which you are. You're from Oregon.
Yeah, from Portland, Oregon, exactly.
Look, I wouldn't mind, relocating to Dublin. How did this happen? How did you?
Yeah, come on out. Absolutely, the more the merrier.
At least for a few weeks, I'll come hang with you. How did this happen for you? I know you're very talented. Tell us the story of how this happened.
Well, I started out in the craft brewing industry, so I started out making IPAs and Hefeweizens and that sort of stuff in Portland and in Seattle, and then one fateful night in a pub in Edinburgh, met my wife, who's Irish, and the rest is history.
Very nice, very nice. So and so you've been in Ireland for a while.
Oh yeah, about probably 13 years now.
Cool. Very nice. So your background was brewing, and then you started doing more distilling, and you've just been doing some wonderful projects from the very beginning for Teeling. We love what you're doing. You have another one that's going to be coming soon to the U.S. Tell us about that one.
Yeah, we've got the Wonders of Wood.
Wonders of Wood. Ooh, I love that.
Yeah.
What is the Wonders of Wood?
Check this bad boy out. Here we go.
Oh, yeah. Ooh, that's beautiful. Oh, that's lovely.
Yeah. So that's a single pot still whiskey. Pot still is a style of whiskey that's unique to Ireland and one that Dublin would have been well known for. And what we did with this one was we aged it in chinkapin casks. So chinkapin is used for rye whiskey, and we got our hands on some chinkapin casks. And the great thing about Irish whiskey is that it says in the law that it has to be aged in a wooden barrel. It doesn't say what wood.
It could be any kind.
So any kind of wood, yeah. So the Wonders of Wood is our way of trying to explore chinkapin, chestnut, different acacia, different kinds of wood that you can use for aging Irish whiskey. Yeah.
So this one is chinkapin, but also the chestnut as well, and
we've got a whole series of them.
Oh, you have a whole series. Okay, got it. So this is going to be the first in the series?
This is the first one. Yeah, exactly.
The first. So you have more coming that'll be chestnut and other woods.
Exactly.
Chinkapin's the first. What is the chinkapin done to this one? What kind of flavors?
The chinkapin's done is we've taken pot still, which has a nice sort of spiciness to it, right? The use of the malted and unmalted barley gives you quintessentially a oily, spicy whiskey that people probably are fairly familiar with some other pot stills out there. And what the chinkapin has done for this has just accentuated that. So in the same way that rye has a spiciness that's coming from the wood, right? This has that spiciness too. It's kind of, in my mind, halfway between like a European oak and an American oak. So it doesn't have the vanilla that American oak would typically have with a white oak, right? And it doesn't have quite the spiciness that you would associate with a European oak, but it's a lovely whiskey. It's got a little bit of like chocolate coffee kind of flavors on the finish. That's quite nice.
And it's 100% in that barrel.
Yeah, aged 100% in the exactly.
And it's grain and malt both. Is it?
No, it's just the pot still. So a mixture of 50% malted, 50% unmalted barley in there, milled, mashed, fermented in the distillery in Dublin, and then aged in virgin Chinquapin casks.
Fairly limited edition that we'll see.
Yeah, we're talking about a couple thousand bottles coming to the U.S. Yeah.
I'm glad you told me. We'll all be those of us that are Teeling fans, which I know a lot of you all are, that are watching. We'll be watching for it. 5 years? Did you say it was 5 years old?
That is a 6-year-old.
6-year-old. And every year you're going to have a new, different type of wood that really, has anybody done Chinquapin with Irish? Is this what you one of the first?
Yeah, I think we are one of the first. Yeah.
Well done. You have so many different experiments from what I understand, whether it's the cognac or the Sauterne. How many different experiments are you doing?
Oh, I lose track. You know, I always used to say 100, and then I looked at the stock list in the warehouse there. It was like, actually, it's more like 120, 130 different cask types, and like
amazing.
All sorts of different casks. Everything from virgin American oak with different toastings and different char levels in it. You know, that'd be fairly standard stuff, right? To unusual Italian wines, anything and everything. We've tried a lot of different stuff.
Such innovation, such a great distillery. We're seeing more and more of the Teeling, of course. And again, we love how you all have grown. And as you've grown, you've had more and more different expressions and some limited editions as well. And this limited edition that you and I are about to try together, I'm so lucky to have some of this 30-year-old in my hand. This 30-year-old, wow. Tell us about this 30-year-old. This is there's not too many Irish whiskeys that I've ever seen over here that get to be 30-year-old, right? I mean,
yeah, it is very limited, right? We're very lucky to have this stock. So this is whiskey that the Teeling family would have had for a number of years.
Right.
When you own a distillery, right, you have certain opportunities that normal people don't have, where you can buy barrels of whiskey, right? And so this is stock that the Teelings would have bought a number of years ago. And to be completely honest, probably didn't have a plan at the beginning with it, right? Knew that they weren't making any more of it, right? And so the question that I had, or the challenge that I had, 10 years ago with these casks was, okay, it's good. We like it. Can you make it better?
They liked it as it was, but they wanted it better.
Yeah, it was a lovely 20-year-old single malt. It was 10 years ago, it was a single malt that you could have sold for 120, 150 euros a bottle, no problem, and was lovely, right? And the question was, okay, what can we do to make this better? It's good, right? But can we do something to make it better? And what we had heard about was Sauterne casks. What we had heard about was the lovely fruit and the layering of finish that Sauterne gives to a whiskey. And what this single malt was missing at the time, 10 years ago, was a finish. And so the question was, okay, if you put it in a Sauterne cask, could you put a finish on it?
Right.
Yeah, you probably could, but like it'd be pretty risky, right? So in the beginning, we emptied a fair number of casks and started filling these Sauterne casks. We went to France and got the best Sauterne casks that we could find. They're a bit like hen's teeth. They're difficult to get your hands on, and we got lucky, I think, with the casks. And then I religiously went up to the warehouse about every month and was crossing my fingers and like, please don't mess this up, Alex. Okay. And what was kind of weird, for the first 6 months, nothing happened. And at first I was like, oh my God, oh no. And then you realize like, okay, well, we haven't screwed it up yet, right? Like we whatever
happened.
Nothing much happened.
Right.
Yeah. And then after about a year, it started to get this lovely sort of finish thing. All right. It's starting to do its thing, right?
You see it was happening.
So we've released the same stock as a number of different expressions. It's been the 21-year-old originally, like when you would have been to the distillery, 7 years ago, it would have been the 21-year-old. Then it became the 24-year-old, right? A 24-year-old won the world's best single malt. That was a great honor and a privilege to be involved with something like that. And then a 28-year-old has come out, and now we're at the 30-year-old. So this is distilled all in September of 1991. Right?
Friend. Yes, this is so unique and different. And again, when you did release it last, it did have the Sauterne, or it had something. It did have the Sauterne.
Yeah, it's always been in Sauterne.
It's always been that Sauterne because you put it in when it was how old? The Sauterne?
When it was 20. So
when
this
it was
has been
20.
10 years.
You've been kind of following it. This is amazing. The nose is something so different than what I've ever had before, and then the flavor just is this just fountain of just different layers that are happening. This is good. I'm still trying to work out the nose. It's sort of slightly floral and fruity, but then it gets sort of earthy as well. There's
like a passion fruit kind of thing going on in there.
Fruity, kind of almost a slightly tropical.
Yeah. Pineapple, pears, and apples there too.
The flavor matches it in some ways, but kind of takes a whole different turn in this. Again, it just feels like this flood of interesting, really just older notes.
So with the 24-year-old, it would have been an explosion of fruit, right? And then there would have been a little bit of smokiness, and then it would have gone into this long finish. This is like honey, though. At 30 years old, this still has a bit of that smokiness there, although it has really
little touch of that.
It's just it's like nectar. It's just
there's a nectar, like slight touch of smoke, nectar. That passion fruit is big, kind of towards the end, but just tons of different things. I'm gonna have to really sit with this for a while because this is so good. And again, you only had so much stock to play with in the beginning. How do you do that when you I'm gonna try Sauterne? You put a little bit in there, and then you keep. How do you do that when you only have so much?
Well, we went all in.
You went all in. Okay, you went all in. And how often would you check that?
Like I said, religiously in the beginning.
Religiously. All right. Quite often then. Yeah.
Yeah. And then after about a year of religiously checking it, then you're like, okay, we can calm down a bit, right? I think it's going to be okay. And come back to it maybe 3-4 times a year. And then, and then you just know, like, okay, that's.
Is this the last of it, or will there be a
No, there's more still, but there isn't a lot of it. I will say that there's not a whole lot of it left. So there will be a limited release sometime in the future, but I'd say it'll be a number of years before we see it again.
This is beautiful. This is so nice. I'm so thrilled to be tasting this with you. This is one of those you just want to sit with, think on, enjoy the taste of it, and just really let it just kind of come to you. This is so nice. Wow. So we may see more of this. Obviously, a lot more limited editions, special expressions with the wood to come. And I feel like there's more and more of that just in general, right? More interest in whiskey. As the interest in whiskey has grown, I've seen more and more distilleries releasing older Irish whiskeys. Irish whiskey is something that I think, in general, a lot of them, it depends how you define young and old, right? For bourbon,
sure,
4 or 5, what's old, what's young. That's even changed, right? Because now finding a 10 or 12-year-old bourbon, that can be considered old in some ways. Talk about that a little bit as Irish whiskey ages in general. What does it do that you might not see on other whiskeys? What do you like about younger Irish whiskey, and what do you like about older?
Yeah, so Ireland has a very mild climate, right? The winters aren't that cold. We don't get usually below freezing here during the winter, and the summers aren't particularly hot. We wouldn't get like above 80 normally, right? Which is perfect for maturing whiskey, right? Because whiskey kind of likes to be in that Goldilocks zone of not so cold and not so hot. And what I've really enjoyed in my 12, 13 years in the whiskey industry in Ireland is that it used to be, 15 years was the oldest. After 15 years, it just gets too woody. It's just not that, It's not that we just don't see those. I mean, now you see all of this older. The idea 10 years ago of having a 30-year-old whiskey is like, what? That's crazy. You can't possibly do that.
You just didn't see it. You hardly would ever see it. What you maybe never.
And to have an expression like this that has loads of fruit, loads of flavor, is delicate, has that sweet softness to it, right? And is not overaged in the cask. That's just been great. That's been great to push the boundaries there with the very old expressions, right? And to use that knowledge, like with the Blackpitts, to try and make the younger stuff better too, right?
I think that's
like, why do we have 130, 150 casks in the warehouse? Because we're trying to learn something new every day, right? We're trying to explore and see, like, okay, is it white wine or red wine? Is it spirits? Is it beer? Is it what kind of cask is going to actually mature the whiskey in the most interesting way, and in a way that consumers are going to be excited about, right?
Right. So as you, and again, you have done amazing experiments producing some really unique whiskeys at Teeling. So well done, Alex. Thank you for doing that.
My pleasure.
Yeah, and as you've done this, I think more and more people have been interested in older whiskeys, in unique Irish whiskeys expressions, and it's grown, right? Irish whiskey as a category has really grown the last several years.
Yeah, it's been great. It's been great to be part of that, right? Like, there's the stories in the textbooks of the fall of Irish whiskey, and it's been great to be there for the rise now, right? That we see this golden era of Irish whiskey. Yeah.
When was the fall, and when do you think the rise happened again? I kind of know what it is in bourbon, but what is it for Irish whiskey?
Yeah, well, the fall for Irish whiskey was before Prohibition in the United States, and then Prohibition was kind of the final nail in the coffin. And then you've got probably about 40, 50 years of horrible sales in Irish whiskey, where it was at, it went from 60% of the world's whiskey to less than 1%. Wow. And now Irish whiskey is coming back. We still have, a lot of growth to get back to 60%. So I don't know if that's ever going to be achievable again. But I think that Irish whiskey has found a way of reinventing itself in a way that appeals to new consumers, that appeals to people that are looking for something different, that are looking for something that's got, a bit more fruit, a bit more approachable sweetness on it. Yeah.
Amazing. And again, continues to grow, especially with older expressions, new brands we're seeing pop up. You all have been such a big part of that at Teeling. And and
it's been great to see Irish whiskey move on from shots, right? It's not just shots and a beer at the bar, right? Like, there's expensive stuff.
There's this. This is not going to be easy to find out. If you are an Irish whiskey fan, I would say look for this. This is something so unique. The flavors, and even just holding it in my palate for 10, 20 seconds, I can feel those flavors continuing to rush out. But no matter what what your interest in Irish whiskey is, try that small batch, try the Blackpitts, look for what they have out there, and look for that wood experience.
Yeah, the one is wow.
Look for that coming. Alex, always good to see you, my friend. I really appreciate you taking some time with us on
my pleasure.
St. Patrick's Day week.
Happy St. Patrick's Day.
Yeah, you too. What are you going to do to celebrate later in the week? What are you going to do to celebrate?
In Ireland, there's it's like the 4th of July a bit. There's the parade. We all go down to there's the village parade that people go to. So we're going to go down to my wife's village, and we're going to have a few pints of Guinness and a few Irish whiskeys, and
excellent.
Enjoy it.
Good. Cheers, my friend. Looking forward to seeing you in Dublin.
Slàinte,
Alex. Thank you. And thanks for watching us. Happy St. Patrick's